We'd like to welcome you to the City of Laguna Niguel's Veterans Day ceremony. I am Mayor Pro Tem Sandy Rains and the co-chair of the Laguna Niguel Military Support Committee, and I'm joined by my City Council colleagues and Military Support Committee co-chair Rishi Paul Sharma. I want to thank you for joining us today to honor all the heroes of our community, our brave veterans that are here today. We will begin today's ceremony with a presentation of flags and the Pledge of Allegiance led by Boy Scout Troop 772, followed by the National Anthem performed by our Orange County deputies, Joseph DeVella of the Laguna Niguel Police Services. And at this time, I ask if you are able to please stand and remain standing as we honor our flag and this great country.
Color Guard, attention. Audience, attention. Color Guard, advance. Color Guard, prepare to post the colors. Salute. Those non-uniform, please place your right hand over your heart and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Color Guard, post the colors. 2. Color Guard, regroup. Color Guard, dismissed. Audience at ease.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Everybody be seated, please. Thank you. Wow, that was beautiful. I've gotten to know Deputy DeVella pretty well over the last several years, and I appreciate his service to our community and that beautiful voice, of course. It's great looking out over the community today and seeing so much patriotism. It's a special day of remembrance. I want to thank not only Deputy DeVella for that presentation of the National Anthem, but also the Scouts for respectfully presenting the colors of our nation as well. At this time, I'd like to introduce American Legion Post number 281 to lead us in invocation and a moment of silence to show our respect for those that gave so much of their service to our country.
for whom the bell tolls. Join me in standing in a moment of silence for all the men and women who have sacrificed their lives to give us our nation's freedom. Thank you. You may be seated.
Thank you. So at this point in the program, we like to introduce our local dignitaries and elected officials who spend so much of their personal time serving our community. When I say your name, if you'd mind standing and being recognized. Assemblywoman Lori Davies. Thank you. Our very own Mayor Elaine Genoway. Joining me on stage, Mayor Pro Tem Sandy Rains. Councilmember Fred Minigar, and Councilmember Kelly Jennings. Thank you. Additionally, we have representatives from the different offices from our community, representing today Congresswoman Michelle Steele's office. I believe we have a representative, if she's here. He's here? Nobody? Thank you. State Senator Pat Bates' office. Would you stand? Thank you. And Orange County Supervisor Lisa Bartlett's office. She was in the back of the room. Thank you. And of course, the remarkable city of Laguna Niguel, we're extremely thankful to have our local hometown veterans who are our heroes. I'm so happy that we have so many of them joining us today. There will be an opportunity that we'll be presenting to you and recognizing you later in today's presentation. But for now, we're going to start with our opening remarks, and we will be joined on stage by Mayor Elaine Genoway.
Okay, well, it is truly an honor to be mayor of this remarkable city that really understands the many sacrifices our veterans have made to defend our country. Veterans Day is a very special day. It's the one where we pause as a nation and specifically set aside as a time to honor all veterans who have served and currently serve in the United States military. Approximately 22 million of our fellow citizens once carried the title of active duty Marine, soldier, sailor, airman, Coast Guard, or National Guardsman. And now they carry the title of veteran. And we know them as our neighbors, our friends, our colleagues, and our family members. And they make us proud to be Americans. Here in Laguna Niguel, we recognize veterans as true American heroes who have unselfishly placed their lives on the line for our freedoms and defended all that our nation's flag represents. We can never repay them and are forever grateful to them and their families who have stood beside them and sacrificed as well. Here in Laguna Niguel, we make it our priority to honor our veterans, not just one day in the year, but rather each and every day. What started approximately 10 years ago with a Boy Scout troop around a flagpole at City Hall, Lieutenant Colonel Shep Bentley, remember that? So that was to honor this day and to teach the Boy Scouts to honor this day and the veterans. Then the next year, we moved into the City Hall courtyard with 8 Pearl Harbor veterans sharing their personal stories of that day of infamy. And it shortly grew into this beloved community ceremony of honor, which all of you are at today. As a community, we show our gratitude by reaching out to express our appreciation and ensuring that our veterans are never forgotten because they are, in fact, esteemed members of our community. In addition to today's annual Veterans Ceremony, the City of Laguna Niguel continues to provide several meaningful programs to highlight our veterans and to honor them in small yet powerful ways, such as through the Military Service Member Chalk Wall, commemorative patriotic yard signs, and through an online digital Veterans Salute program. We also have reserved parking spots for veterans at City Hall and at Sea Country Senior and Community Center year-round. And that's not all. To honor and support those who are currently serving our country, the City of Laguna Niguel proudly established an adoptive relationship with several military units, including the USS Stockdale, the 1st Battalion, 4th Marine Regiment, and the 1st Assault Helicopter Battalion, 140th Aviation Regiment. So, to sustain and enhance these important adoptive relationships, the Laguna Niguel Military Support Committee actively works throughout the year with hands-on service, supportive activity sponsorship, and fundraisers to accept donations in support of these activities for the city's adopted military units and their families. The committee just hosted a major fundraiser, Taste for the Troops, and it was a smashing success. And they continue the tradition of providing our community with the opportunity to give holiday joy and toys to the children of our adopted units via the Holiday Toy Drive, which is taking place this weekend in front of Walmart. In Laguna Niguel, we are serious about our commitment to our veterans because they carried out with honor and commitment their decision to bravely serve our nation. And as we gather here today, it is also important to remember that there are countless members of our armed forces that are currently stationed at all corners around the world. They are missed by their loved ones here at home, so let us keep them in our prayers and never take our daily freedom for granted. I'm truly honored to represent the City Council as our community gathers to pay tribute to our veterans. Thank you all for being here today in recognition and of the significance of today, and to join together as we give honor to all of our veterans. Thank you.
We're going to be having a historical story from the Scouts today as well. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Alan Alves, and I'm a Scout member of Troop 772. Veterans Day is observed throughout the country as a tribute to all those individuals who made the brave decision to defend our freedom by serving in the United States of America military. It is so important that we learn and remind ourselves of the history and importance of Veterans Day. In the United States, Veterans Day is observed on November 11th each year. The significance of this date is meant to honor the 11th day of the 11th month of 1918, which signaled the end of World War I on November 11th, 1918. This date was originally known as Armistice Day. However, in 1954, after World War II and the Korean War ended, President Eisenhower officially changed the name of the holiday from Armistice Day to what is today Veterans Day. Then, 14 years later, in 1968, Congress passed the Uniform Holidays Bill, which temporarily moved Veterans Day to the fourth Monday in October. The law went into effect in 1971, but in 1975, President Gerald Ford signed a new law which returned the annual observance of Veterans Day to its original date of November 11th, due to its meaningful historical significance. The restoration of the observance of Veterans Day to November 11th not only preserved the historical significance of the date, but it also helped to focus attention on the important purpose of the day, which is to celebrate and honor our brave veterans for their patriotism, love of the country, and willingness to serve and sacrifice for the common good. November 11th commemorates all who have served and are currently serving in the United States Armed Forces. Thank you.
Thank you very much for bringing that to our attention and sharing that story with us, or history with us. Before we move on to the introduction of our guest speaker today, I do want to call special attention to a lot of volunteers and representatives that we do have in our audience today from the Military Support Committee from Laguna Niguel. If you'd stand and be recognized. While a lot of people are wearing red today, they are traditionally in red when you see them in public. We also have members of the American Legion Post. If you'd stand and be recognized as well. Thank you. and the American Legion Auxiliary. Thank you very much. So I was asked this morning to keep this short, but what a disservice that would be to his history of service to our community. It's truly an honor when we take a moment to not only do presentations and stop our busy lives and think about the history of our country, but to acknowledge the individuals that have given so much to our community. Having the Scouts here today, having an opportunity to teach them about the history of this country and this community is certainly a blessing that we should all share and continue on. Today, it's my honor and privilege to welcome a very special guest speaker, retired Major General, First Commander of the 23rd Air Force Combat Rescue and Special Operations Unit, William J. Mall, Jr. Mr. Mall's service spanned from 1954 to 1986. That's a lot of years. Beginning his military career with a commission as a second lieutenant from the Reserve Officer Training Program at the University of Pittsburgh in 1954. After graduating from pilot training at Greenville Air Force Base in Mississippi, his first assignment was the 310th Bomb Wing, Schilling Air Force Base, Kansas Flying Strategic Bombers. Mr. Mall was stationed in Vietnam at Ben Ho and Phan Rang Air Force Bases and Korat Ral Thai Air Base in Thailand from December 1970 to 1972 in January. I was actually only 6 days old at that time. So during the Vietnam War, he flew 156 combat missions and more than 900 combat hours in 3 different types of aircraft. Upon return to the United States, he was assigned to the Organization of the Joint Chiefs of Staff in Washington, D.C. Mr. Mall was stationed at various Air Force bases in the country, and in 1983, he became first commander of the 23rd Air Force Combat Rescue Unit and Special Forces Unit, and later that year commanded the Air Force Special Forces during the invasion of Grenada. As a command pilot, Mr. Mall, has served over 8,000 flying hours in 43 different aircraft, including 4 different types of helicopters from Huey to Blackhawks. Mr. Mall culminated his 32 years of Air Force career with Pentagon assignment as the Air Force Director of Personal Plans, responsible for planning and policy to assure the quantity and quality of personnel meet its worldwide mission. We're so fortunate to have him here with us today, and without further ado, please join me in inviting to our stage retired U.S. Air Force Major General, Mr. William J. Mall, Jr.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me. This working? You hear me all? Good. On this beautiful Veterans Day to honor our heroes. I want to do the commercial first. This is an organization I belong to, 150 veterans, the Freedom Committee of Orange County, and our mission is to pass the torch of liberty to the next generation. And we, as our mission, go into schools, elementary, high school, and colleges all over Southern California. A few years ago, we reached a milestone, over 100,000 students we addressed, telling our story to these students. It's all word of mouth, no cost, no charge, no recruiting, no politics. And that's the organization that I belong to. Before I get started, you all get these scam phone calls all the time and drive you crazy. I got one last week. It was a classic, answer the phone. He says, "Grandpa, this is your grandson. I'm in Mexico, and I drove my car down here. I got in an accident, and I need $3,000. Can't believe people are still falling for this, but apparently they are. So I did something you're not supposed to do. I said, "Well, is this Ethan?" And I give him the name. He's got his foot in the door. He says, "Yeah, Grandpa, this is Ethan. I drove down here in Mexico City, got in an accident, I need $3,000. I said, "I'll tell you what, Ethan. You're only 8 years old, and you drove all the way to Mexico before you got in a wreck." I said, "I'll send you the money," and the guy hung up. Okay, well, I told you about one phone call. And the system went haywire here. So the story I'm about to tell you resulted in, it starts with another phone call, just about more bizarre than that one. How'd you like to be on the end of this one? It's picked up the phone and the guy says he's from a certain government agency and he would like a DNA sample. Now imagine yourself on the end of that conversation. And before I hung up on him, I said, I'm thinking, well, what is a DNA for? That's a connected with a crime somewhere. But anyway, he went on to say that he represented an organization whose mission was to find all of the 89,000 missing in action military members from all the wars, from World War II, Vietnam, Korea, and the Gulf Wars. And I listened to him, and he says, "Does the name Charles L. Johnson mean anything to you?" I said, "I never heard of him." He said, "Well, he was a aviator in World War II who was reported as missing in action, and that you're the next of kin." And I thought for a minute, and I said, wait a minute, I can't remember where I put my keys 20 minutes ago, and this guy's taking me back to World War II. I had a cousin, a second cousin named Chuck Johnson. Is that who it could be? He said, "Yeah, that's him." I said, "Well, you found him?" And he said, "No, we haven't found him. We're collecting these DNA samples in case we do find him, and then we'll be able to identify them, bring them home, and that's our mission, to bring all of these 89,000 missing in action people home." So anyway, he said, he named this organization that I never heard of, and he said, "That's our mission, and we'd like a DNA sample from you." And I thought back in World War II, I was in the 4th grade. And one day the teacher came in, and she said, "I've got an assignment for today. We're going to write to a serviceman. There's 16 million men under arms, World War II, and the nicest morale boost was a letter from the people at home, a letter from home." So I went home and told my mom about it, and she said, "Well, why don't you write to your cousin Chuck, because he has something to do with airplanes. You're always yapping about flying in airplanes." And I thought about it for a while, and he was a teenager. I was a toddler, he didn't have much connection. I saw him at a couple of family gatherings and so forth, where I said, "Well, what the heck, I'll do it. Mom tells me, I'll write him a letter." Sure enough, I'm the only kid in class that gets a letter back. Old Chuck wrote me a letter, and he said, "Yeah, I'm training to be a B-24 gunner and radio operator." And so we got a pen pal thing going there. He sent me some patches that my mother sewed on my jacket, and I was feeling pretty good about all that. Told me about gunnery school, how he went out and flying in a B-24 and firing at 50 caliber machine guns and so forth. He eventually went overseas, and after a while, my mother said, "Well, he's missing in action." I didn't know what that meant. They said, "Well, he's not coming back with the rest of them right away." What had happened is my aunt got the dreaded telegram from the War Department that said, "We regret to inform you your son is missing in action." About 2 months later, she got a letter from one of the crew members who was flying an airplane behind him. And they were over the island of New Guinea, which is just north of Australia, in case you're handicapped with a Harvard education. I'll show you that on the map here. But in any event, they were shot down over New Guinea, and the plane behind them said, "We saw 5 parachutes come out of the airplane before it crashed." Well, that was all my aunt needed, the hope springs eternal for her. She said, "He's going to come walking through that door someday." He got out, maybe he's a POW, maybe he's living in a jungle. And she went to her grave with that hope, but the war ended, and nothing ever happened. The POWs came home, and no word from Chuck. So as time went on then, I went on with my career, my family, and everything. So I said to this guy that's on the phone with me that's collecting the DNA, I said, well, you found him? Is that right? You found? No, he said, we haven't found him. We're just collecting these DNA samples in case we do. Well, they knew a little more than they were willing to tell me for obvious reasons, but because they're taking care of missing in action people from all of our wars. Even at that time, we were at war in Afghanistan. So they have a certain protocol. They don't tell you everything until they're absolutely sure and positive of it. Here's a picture of Chuck. The left there, he's in his high school yearbook. On the right, he's in Hawaii on his way to the combat zone. He was declared missing in action April 10th, 1944. This is the organization that contacted me. And right after I got that phone call, my sister called me from South Carolina. She said, you get a phone call from some nut about, she's sure it's a scam. I said, listen, let me make a few phone calls, check this guy out. And sure enough, there is an organization, and that's what they're doing, and this guy belonged to it. So go ahead and send in the sample. They send you a kit, and you swab the inside of your mouth, you send the thing off, and that's it. This was in the fall of 2013. So now I'm feeling a little guilty. I'm the next of kin for this guy. He was kind to me and wrote me letters and things and inspired me. And I sort of put him in the back of my mind. I didn't tell any of my family members about him or anything. So I got on the old internet and I started corresponding with all my nephews, nieces, grandchildren, everybody. And I let them know about this young man. And I said, what a great sacrifice he made. They're looking for him. Maybe they'll find him. We don't know. So I got everybody in the family tree involved. There's the island of New Guinea, which you can see up there. I'll give you a little close-up of it. Gonna wander around here a little bit. The ground troops were fighting on New Guinea, mostly New Zealanders and Australians. They started down here and were sweeping north on the island fighting the Japanese. And the B-24s, where Chuck was stationed, were down here on a little airport. And they would fly up ahead of the troops and bomb concentrations of troops and ammunition dumps and so forth. That was their mission. This is the B-24. You see the ensign on the tail, the insignia. That's the Jolly Rogers. That was his unit. And he was a gunner on the top turret up there. You see that top turret. He was a gunner and radio operator. That's where Chuck flew. This is one of the planes. Now in Europe, they flew with the B-17s. They took the long-range missions from England and they bombed Berlin and so forth. They flew above 20,000 feet. They flew a little different here. They only went up to about 10,000 feet because they were hopscotching with the ground troops and just bombing behind the enemy lines. So they were very vulnerable to anti-aircraft fire, and that's what happened. He was a lead mission. And over this bay, this is, again, a blow-up of New Guinea. They were bombing an airfield up here. The airplane was hit with anti-aircraft. The pilot started a slow left turn, jettisoned his bombs, and the Japanese zeroed in on him when they saw the smoke coming from the plane. They blew the left wing off the airplane, went straight down, and somehow 5 parachutes got out of that airplane, okay? This is an actual photograph of the airplane taxiing out. His plane was named Hot Garter, and you can see that on the nose art. And this was a photograph of their last mission. They were getting ready for takeoff. In 2011, there was a native hunting group, primitive people in the jungle. They came across this huge airplane. And this was about the same time that Pentagon unit was being assembled to locate all these missing in action people. And they locked right onto this, and they sent a team into the jungle. And here you see the Jolly Roger symbol, and there you can just barely see the mouth and the cross bombs. So they identified right away, this is an airplane from the Jolly Rogers. And after a while, they found, when the crew went in there to investigate it, they found the serial number. Now they could get the crew list, and they found out who was on it. And they began the long investigation of what happened to those crew members. Here's what they went into the jungle with on 6 different occasions. They took an explosive ordnance group in there because there's thousands of 50 caliber machine gun bullets laying around, live ammunition and so forth. They had medical personnel, lab techs, archaeology, native guards, and a jungle clearing team. This is the most dense jungle on the planet. Life support people and forensic scientists. Here's a clearing in the jungle. You can see where they found one part of the airplane. And up here, you can barely see the ocean out here. That's where they were hit with the anti-aircraft and so forth. This is a scene on the ground where they cleared the jungle away, some of the wreckage. 6 months later, it looks like this. So that's how fast the jungle grows around there. They made 6 trips in. At the end of 2014, I got another phone call, same outfit. They said, we need another DNA sample. So now I knew they must have found something. And I alerted everybody on the internet again, everybody, mostly of them back east. The archaeologists go in there with a box with a screen on the bottom, just like they do in ancient Egypt, looking for artifacts and so forth. They went down 30 inches all around the airplane, looking for human remains and for artifacts. And these are some of the things that they found. A pair of aviator sunglasses. There's a watch. Is New Zealand currency. They were stationed in New Zealand before they got up to New Guinea. There's a survival knife. There's a belt buckle. There's a compass. Air Force insignia. Here's the engine off the airplane, one of the engines buried in the jungle. And this is the way the natives found the airplane, untouched for 70 years in the middle of the jungle. And if you look real close, you can see a Navy corpsman standing right here, taking it all in. And you see here the stakes around it where they excavate the terrain to find these artifacts and identify these people. Here's another shot of it with the clearing. This is what they identified off my cousin. They used those body parts to match my sister and I's DNA. And about the time he's identified, 2 things happen. A casualty assistance officer is appointed to the next of kin to help them through this process. Remember now, we're talking about current wars too. Even though I'm long separated in time and relationship, some of these people are closer in relationship and time to the actual loss of the loved one. So they handle them all the same. Casualty assistance guy comes to my house, an Army major dressed in his dress blues. He comes to me with a book about an inch thick, sits down at my kitchen table with my daughter and I. He goes through this book, which has all the stuff you're seeing here. These are some of the extracts. It starts with a telegram, copy of the telegram to my aunt. We regret to inform you your son is missing in action. And it goes through the crew list of the airplane and everything. In 2.5 hours, he went over this thing page by page. And it ended up with the idea that you have no doubt in the world that this is where they found him, that he went down with the airplane, and that these are his remains. The other thing that happens is, from the time he's identified in the laboratories at Hickam Air Force Base in Hawaii, an escort officer is assigned to him of equal or higher rank in the same service, and he follows the human remains until they are interred in the ground. So those 2 things happen. Casualty assistant officers gives me all options now. What do you want to do? You don't have to do anything. You can bring them home. I said, I want to bring them home. What are the options? He says, well, you can have this, this, and this. And he suggested Arlington National Cemetery. And he went through the various honors, and I said, I would like full honors at Arlington Cemetery. That's the least I can do for the neglect I felt in my heart that I gave this young man. I'm going to bring him home the right way. So I notified all the people the young people that are on the internet with me, and now they're all excited, and we're going to have a ceremony at Arlington. So after he's identified, this is Washington National Airport. That's a Delta Airlines airplane full of tourists from Hawaii. And the captain says he would like everybody to remain in their seats. We're going to offload the remains of a warrior from World War II. While you stay in your seats, he deplaned with the escort officer. That's this gentleman right here. They stopped all the power units. If you've ever been on a tarmac, the noise is terrific. They shut everything down while they offloaded the remains into the hearse here. So there's the two officers saluting, and also the ground handling guy with his hand over his heart. The escort officer accompanies him to the funeral parlor, where on display there is the Army uniform that Chuck would wear, and the escort officer makes sure that all of his awards, decorations, rank, he measures everything perfect. Remember, the Air Force became a separate unit in 47, so it's still an Army uniform. So that's appropriate. And by now, we're going to have a family reunion because we got people from South Carolina, Pennsylvania, California. All the relatives are going to gather for this ceremony at Arlington. So we got Chapel 1 at Arlington National Cemetery. An officer comes over from the Pentagon and reads his awards and decorations before the ceremony starts. You can see here the Purple Heart, the oldest decoration, originally awarded by George Washington to the Continental Army, the Air Medal, and all of his campaign ribbons. He read all the citations, awarded to him, presented to me as the next of kin. I gave those to my daughter and the young people, that gave each one of them something so they'd have a memory of the occasion. The chaplain who conducted the service. Here you see the old guard arriving. These gentlemen performed like a choreographed ballet. I've never seen a drill team or anything operate like these guys. White glove, precision movement, never a command given. Everything is in, white gloves. They bring the casket into the Chapel 1, and the chaplain who just returned from Afghanistan gave he knew all about Chuck. He gave a real tribute to him, and there wasn't a dry eye in the place. All the young people are really affected by this now. Chaplain took me outside and he said, "This is first honors at Arlington. You can see a 40-piece marching band, the gun salute team, the escort, and here we are loading onto the caisson after the ceremony. You can see some of the people, the family assembling out there. Like I say, we had a family reunion. The distance from the chapel to where he was to be buried was 1.2 miles. It was 24 degrees, freezing cold. Every one of those young persons decided to walk behind the caisson as the military tradition warranted. 6 white horses mounted up on the caisson. I got in a van with a chaplain. I was freezing. Couldn't take it, but anyway, I took this picture out of the window. Here you see the beautiful hills of Arlington. A little history of Arlington. It used to be General Robert E. Lee's plantation. As you recall, again, the Civil War in North versus South, when Robert Lee went over to the South, the Northern Quartermaster, the Union Army, appropriated Arlington for the U.S. Army. The U.S. Army has owned it ever since. In order to make sure that Robert E. Lee would never occupy it again, he started burying Union troops right off his doorstep. And that's later on how Arlington Cemetery was formed. A little more about that later. Anyway, here we go through the cemetery. You can see some different types of memorials here. Back before World War I, if you were from a wealthy family and you wanted to bury someone there, you could put up all kinds of elaborate men on horseback and tributes and so forth. But after World War II, in that era, the standard type of headstone is available if you were a private first class or a 4-star general. You get the same requirements. Here we are coming through the winding trail back there. A beautiful place. Even in winter, it was beautiful. You see this Getty Images here. These are, that's a commercial organization that takes pictures of events of national interest, sports figures, celebrities, and they provide a byline and a picture. And when the local paper pays them. They take the image off of here, and so they have a clean picture. They don't have to send a photographer out and a journalist out. And the Orange County Register uses them quite a bit. You'll see a tribute to Getty Images. So does the LA Times and even the New York Times. So I restricted these guys to 100 yards away because I didn't want the cameras clicking and upsetting the dignity of the service. We had a lot of press coverage because this is the first success story of that unit that was tasked with recovering all of our missing in action people. So this is a first. And of course, they're arguing to get the most coverage you can because they're competing with military dollars with everybody else in the Defense Department. So we compromised, kept them 100 yards away. They had good cameras with great lenses, and here's another shot that they took of the procession as it wound through the, this is the arrival at the gravesite. Again, you see these gentlemen from the old guard. Again, the white glove treatment, the never a command given, perfect marching synchronous up to the gravesite. And here they are, they wrap the flag, with the white gloves and present it to me as the next of kin. There's my sister standing next to me, all bundled up, my last salute. And after the volley of the 3-gun salute, the 3 volleys, a bugler appears up on the hill and he plays taps, which echoes all over the area there. So there's my last goodbye to Chuck. And you see the detail they go through. This is his dog tags down here attached to the casket, the metal tags that the warriors wear when they're in combat to identify them. And I called up this Getty Images and I say, you got a picture of me, that's my cousin. Could I have that picture? He said, sure. Had a cashier's check for $350 and I found one on the internet without the Getty image thing on there. Later that summer, my nephew, who was at that time enrolled in the Naval Academy, came over and took a picture of the headstone, which wasn't installed at the time, and there you see it. That made a pretty big splash in Pittsburgh. That's where he's from and where I'm from. Front page of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette here. They ran a 5-day article on it. They ran it again over Memorial Day. They even sent a team out to Hickam Air Force Base in Hawaii for the identification. And so it was a pretty big deal. Again, this is the first success of that organization. Now, I read recently in the Orange County Register, they found a guy from Pearl Harbor from World War II that they brought back, but it's now pretty common that this outfit is bringing these people home. How many of those 89,000 they'll recover, I don't know, but they're hard at it. At the time of Chuck's funeral, the commander of the unit came over to the chapel and told me they had 6 teams operating, one in South Korea, one in South Vietnam, 2 in Europe, and someplace else in the Pacific. So they're hard at work. No other country does this. And the local ABC, CBS, and NBC interviewed us for the local news in Washington, D.C., where we were interviewed about the thing. They never had a next of kin as a general before either. I think that added to the novelty of this. A little bit about Arlington. 400,000 buried there, 639 acres. Movie actors. Maureen O'Hara's buried there. Audie Murphy, who was a war hero and a movie actor. President JFK is there. Lee Marvin, a movie actor and a Marine. John Kennedy, as I say, the president, and his 2 brothers, and Jackie Kennedy are buried there. In 2015, somebody made a discovery that there's 94,000 slots remaining, and it's right in the middle of D.C. There's no more land available. 22 million eligible. So even doing the math, they want to conduct funerals in Arlington for the next 150 years. It ain't going to work, so they set up some new rules. Now you need a Medal of Honor. We'll get you in there for sure, and all of these other things, if you were a POW, or if you're a veteran receiving retirement pay. So that's going to enable them to continue. Now, they have a memorial wall and so forth for the Guard and Reserve that's above ground type ceremonies, but to be buried there it is. I want to thank you again for coming. Have a good day, and be careful driving home.
Let's have another round of applause for retired Major General Mr. William J. Maul, Jr. We're so fortunate that you've afforded us with the opportunity to share your story, Mr. Maul, and we sincerely thank you for your esteemed years of service and unwavering commitment to our country and your family's commitment as well. Thank you. And now, as a very special part of our Veterans Day ceremony, the Girl Scouts and Cub Scouts will be delivering handmade thank you cards to all of our veterans that are here with us today. Today's handmade cards were created by the following troops: Girl Scouts Troop 6486, 7570, and 4497, and Cub Scouts from Packs 700 and 705. So to all of our veterans, when your name is called today, please stand to be recognized if you're able to. If not, please raise your hand so that the Scouts can deliver you a note at your seat. With that, we'll go ahead and begin. Go ahead.
First, we have Mr. John Haas, dates of service 1960 to 1963, 82nd Airborne. Mr. David Tuma, 1980 to 1984, Air Force. John Ulrich, 1966 to 1970, United States Air Force. John Humphrey, 68 to 71 and 74 to 88, Army. Mr. Tim Bowman, 1975 to 1997, Army. Shep Bentley, 1980 to 2005, U.S. Marines. That's what this is all about, right? Jim Van Schack, 1946 to 1948, Army. Mr. William J. Maul, 1954 to 1987, United States Air Force. Terry Foster, 1964 to 1970, United States Navy. Robert Casey, 1942 to 45, Army. Dwight Moudry, 64 to 70, California Army National Guard. Scott Williams, 66 to 69, Army. Tim Hines, 99 to 2017, United States Air Force. Guy Heaton, U.S. Coast Guard. Jess Vasquez, 64 to 68, United States Air Force.
Mr. Mark Forster, 2008 Coast Guard Auxiliary. Maynard Rains, 1973 to 1997, U.S. Army. John Williams, 1977 to 1981, United States Coast Guard. Dave Beering, 1971 to 1979, Army. Michael Garnreiter, 1972, Marines. Philip Parks, 1992, U.S. Army. Bill Stable, 1966 to 1970, Navy. Bill Lieber, 1973 to 1974, Army. John Pointer, 1970 to 2000, Army National Guard. John Wilson, 1972 to 1979, United States Air Force. Abdu Akil, United States Coast Guard Auxiliary. Ed Struzek, 1988 to 1996, U.S. Army. Robert Gibson, 1943 to 1946, Navy. Robert Chica, 1964 to 1966, Army. Did I do this one? So, Robert Gibson, 1943 to 1946, Navy. Bob Berube, 1967 to 1971, Air Force.
Tim Gamachi, 1973 to 75, Army. Annabelle Cruz, 55 to 57, Army. And Joe On, 70 to 74, Army.
So thank you all again today for being here. I want to thank the entire Laguna Niguel community for your ongoing support of our veterans. It's so important that we continue to come together as a community to say thank you to all the veterans and their families for the service and their sacrifice. We must always recognize the impact that military service has had on all of our lives, which has led to the protection of our freedoms that we cherish each and every day. Veterans Day is a special holiday for my family, as I hold it dear to my heart. As many of you know, my husband is a veteran who retired from the United States Army as a major, and I'm always proud to share that my daughter has also served our country. She's just recently retired from active military service as a lieutenant from the United States Navy. We recently lost my father-in-law this past year, who was a World War II veteran and a 3-time Bronze Star winner. So this is something that I hold very dear, and I appreciate each and every one of you being here today to celebrate and honor our veterans. Please know that I fully understand the many sacrifices that our veterans and their families make to ensure that our freedoms are forever protected. I will never take that for granted. To all of the veterans out there today, here in our community, throughout our state, and across this country and around the globe, we sincerely thank you for your service, your sacrifice, and your dedication to our freedom. We are forever indebted to you and your families and will continue to honor you through our programs and services here in the city of Laguna Niguel. As we conclude today's program, and we would like to thank those that have graciously continued to making this Veterans Day ceremony possible and so special for our community. First, once again, we'd like to thank retired Major General of the United States Air Force, William J. Maul, Jr. Our Orange County Sheriff's Department Deputy Joseph Devala. Participants from our local Boy Scout, Girl Scout, and Brownie troops. My City Council colleagues, Mayor Elaine Genoway, Council Member Fred Minigar, and Council Member Kelly Jennings, and my co-chair, Rishi Paul Sharma. City of Laguna Niguel Parks and Recreations Department, you work so hard and we appreciate you. Our Laguna Niguel Military Support Committee, the American Legion Post 281 and the American Legion Post 281 Auxiliary, and of course, our Freedom Committee of Orange County, who helps with this program. Thank you all for joining today. I invite you now to our courtyard to enjoy some refreshments, conversations, and congratulations to all of our veterans that are here today. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America.